Barbarian Kingdoms is a competitive game set after the end of the Roman Empire. It is set in Europe, and as the title implies, different groups controlled by the players will try to expand their control over the region. It is for 2 to 6 players. Of course, if you're playing with fewer than 6 players, then some regions will be out of play. You can also play in teams. And this is what the board may look like if you're playing with 6 players. And again, it may be 6 players, or 6 factions, 3 for all, or playing in teams, or maybe even fewer players controlling multiple kingdoms. So you have the area here divided into regions. Each faction has 3 starting regions, as indicated by those emblems there, and they're not all equal. One of them is the capital. So for them we have these ones, and here we have these, and so on and so forth. The Huns start from there, for example, and have those 3. You see that there are coins all over the board. There are 3. The denomination is the tremis, also known as the medieval dollar, and denominations are 1, 2, or 3. You don't have ATMs or banks, so there's a certain rigidity in the way that the money works, and I like that. At the beginning of the game, each kingdom in play gets a 1, a 2, and a 3, and you place them randomly in their 3 starting provinces. Then you take all of the remaining coins and you place one of them face down in each remaining region, representing the treasure that is there to be looted from the region. There's also one of these tokens that has a value 5, represents a thing like a casket of gems, but there's only one that is a 5 there. So during the game, players will take actions doing the kind of things that you imagine. They will recruit, they will maneuver, they will invade, this sort of thing. What are you trying to do? You're trying to either defeat 2 enemy kings, collect 2 of these trophies, in which case you win the game immediately. But don't worry, if your king is eliminated, which happened to me, you're not out of the game. You just don't play with the king piece, which is not great. Also, you win by taking control of 7 regions, which means placing 4 control markers on the board on top of your 3 starting control markers printed on the board. Also be invisible, meaning that they belong to you. So, eliminating 2 enemy kings or controlling 7 regions, that is how you win the game. We start with our king on the board, but then each player also has a personal area that may look kind of like this. This would be the personal area, the example for the Huns. You have a screen behind which you will keep your personal treasure, and it is absolutely vital that the other players don't know exactly what you have. Then we have 4 military pieces. Every player has 4 soldiers. You're going to have a player aid indicating your personal powers and also a reminder of what the other kingdoms do. Each kingdom has a power that applies to all their units or different ways in which that faction operates, plus a specific power that applies to that king only, which is why it's so pretty terrible. To lose your king, you also lose access to your special power. The display on which you place your military pieces also stores the 4 control markers that you're trying to place on the board to represent provinces that you control. As you can see, they are in a line under these symbols here. 1 coin, 2 coins, 3 coins, 4 coins. As you probably imagine, when you recruit units, you take them from your board, and you take them starting from the leftmost, also the cheapest, that is the cost. Suppose I decide to recruit a unit there, because I control it, there. And then I will pay the cost indicated there, which is 1 coin. But again, there are no banks, so the money is always either in the player's personal coffers or on the board in the region where it is actually spent. So if I spend 1 to recruit in that region, I place a coin there. And that's that idea right there. Suppose that later there's a situation, then I can spend money to place a control marker in an uncontrolled region where I'm occupying. And again, I start placing the control markers from left to right, always from the cheapest to the most expensive. And if something happens to these control markers, they are returned again right to left. And if something happens to my troops, they're also returned to the board from right to left. Again, changing the cost of how things work. More in detail, when players act, well, players will alternate taking turns, and during your turn you take one of these actions. Pretty simple. Recruiting is what I just showed you. Pay money and place units in a region that you control where you don't have a unit yet. This is important because with the exception of battles, the stacking limit is of 1 game piece at all times. 1 game piece per region at all time. So recruiting is pretty self-explanatory. Maneuvering is about moving your units by 1 into adjacent spaces that you already control, So maneuvering, you can move any and all, but again, only regions that you control. Once per maneuver action, you can also castle, which means you switch the position of one of your military units and your king between 2 adjacent regions. Some regions also have harbors, and so suppose that that we have that situation there, or this situation. Here we go. Boom. As part of your maneuvering action, you can also choose to move a unit from a harbor to the sea. The sea is one ginormous region. All this is just all one region, all one play area, which is connected with all harbors. It's adjacent to all harbors. There are no battles at sea. Any number of units, kings, everything can be at sea. But again, this as part of your maneuver, you can move from a harbor to the sea or from a harbor to, again, a region that you control. Maneuvering has the advantage of you can move any and all of your pieces, but only between land, from the land to the sea, and or from the sea to regions you control and between regions you control. That's maneuvering. Invading, as you can imagine, is a little more limited. You can only move 1 of your units. However, the good thing is that, boom, you can go to places that you don't control, hoping to get that. When that happens, however, and you're starting an invasion, you declare an invasion, then players with units adjacent to the region you're invading can try to, quote-unquote, intercept you. That's what we call it in wargaming tradition, which I say, okay, I'm going to intercept you there, so I move in my adjacent units. In this case, they only have those 2 pieces there. If the 2 active players, that is the one attempted invasion and the one intercepting, have other pieces adjacent there, they can bring them in. Suppose that we had started this, actually that worked. So that one goes there, says I'm invaded there. This one says I'm intercepting. Now the same player has an adjacent piece and they can bring them in also. And that will trigger a battle. We'll see how that happens later. Because there may also be a case where you are in a region, you occupied it, but you don't control it yet. In which case you claim, which is a specific action. So for an action you claim, which is you say the words or a variant of I'm claiming that region. Now, anybody who has game pieces adjacent to that, the region where you're trying to claim, may try to intercept you again, precisely like when you're trying to do an invasion. So when you invade or when you claim control, other players have the opportunity of interrupting you. Suppose that they don't interrupt you, suppose that they don't intercept you, then the battle means that you will simply take all the money that is there and add it to your coffers. And that's what it does, but remember, you didn't take control of it yet. If you are claiming a region and no one intercepts you, either because they can, no one is around, or they choose not to, then that's what happens with that successful, if you're successful claim. But then you want to know, what if it's not unopposed? What if a battle starts either triggered by an invasion or triggered by a claim action? In that case, we count battle points, and battle is completely deterministic. You start by checking if somebody controls the region already, and it may be that no one controls it. Then that player will add 2 battle points. Then you look at the units that are involved after people have had a chance of bringing in reinforcements. Each king is worth 6 battle points, each other unit is worth 3 points. And then we do bribes. Each player takes a bag and places any amount of coins from their treasure, from their personal treasure, and an amount of coin, maybe 0, in the bag. There you go. Suppose that these guys here have decided to use these many bribes, and these other people have decided to add this many bribes. You know what that is? I mean, I'm not showing you what it is because the uncertainty is very important. Then the players will switch, and here's the thing. The bribes that you pay will add to your battle points, but they will go to the coffers of the player that you bribed. So, suppose that this party here, there we go. This party has spent that many bribes. Now they're adding 4 points to their battle points total. This party has bribed that many coins, so they're adding 6 points to their own battle total. So it's the ultimately negative loop, because the more you are adding to your total of battle points, the more money you're giving to the other side. And sometimes losing a battle is a good way just to completely bankrupt the opponent, and you maybe study precisely knowing that you're gonna lose it, and so you spend nothing there. So that's the idea. Suppose that at the end, when all is said and done, this side is the winner, then all of the pieces of the losing side are removed from the board, and again, they're placed on the owning player's player aid. That way. Boom. If it was a king that was removed, the game piece goes to the player who defeated the king, because remember, collecting 2 enemy kings wins you the game. This is the general idea, and again, the most this important action of the battle really is key here. There's one other action that you will need to take from time to time, which is taxing, which is you collect a coin per region that you control. Extremely simple. You collect 5 regions, you collect 4 coins, but again, not from a general bank outside of the board, which doesn't exist, from the regions themselves. And this is how you play Barbarian Kingdoms. Barbarian Kingdoms is a really fun game, really neat, and it is a really remarkable hybrid between Wargame and Eurogame, because somehow it does feel like both. Well, you have the traditional actions, of course, so wargaming, but then you have a deterministic, you have a clean, almost cold, I would say, calculating way of doing things. There is a very tight system of actions that can be unforgiving. If you move away from a province, forgetting, say, to take control of it, which happens to some people, then you realize it's going to take you another action just to move in there, because it still counts as an invasion even if it is empty, and that if you're lucky then no one got in there. Then you have to spend another action to claim it. There is a certain engine of actions that you need to make sure you don't mess too much with. So I did possibly, I fell behind. I don't know if that's the reason why I lost the game, but I fell behind in a game because I simply forgot to claim a certain region when I was occupying it. But this game, the game is also really short, and that's perfectly fine to me. Where they say that it takes about 15 minutes per player, that seems pretty accurate to me. Playing with four, yeah, we played in less than an hour, and so we played 2 games in a row. It really goes nice and fast, but not in a way that feels disappointing. With one action per player, and sometimes the action, I'm gonna collect access, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. It goes around the table really fast, and also something that slows down gameplay very often in many games is that the play before you changes things in a way that now you have to rethink of your strategy from scratch. This is not going to happen again because things cost and there's a certain build up that you need to do, and if I don't have the money, I don't have money behind my screen, and so I don't want to I cannot invade, I cannot join, I cannot claim, I cannot join a battle for claim or for invading. So if I decided to tax, I'm probably going to tax, and not a lot else is going to change. Again, if I don't have the money, I'm not going to intercept, things like that. From time to time, you may try to bluff. Yeah, you join an interception, you join a battle, you interrupt a claim, just so that you start a battle, you know you're going to lose the game piece, you put absolutely nothing in the bag, and the opponent gives you a ton of money because they really want that region and they think you're going to contest it. That happens. Again, there are suckers who indeed spend a lot of time, a lot of money giving it to players who put absolutely nothing in the bag, and they do retain that region. They lose a single piece that they can bring back with the fabulous wealth that they used to bribe them. So I'm not particularly good at the mechanics of this game. In particular, auction, the combat is resolved, again, through this mix of like deterministic planning and auctioning, which is still technically deterministic, but it has that element of uncertainty. And I'm not very good at auctions. Incidentally, maybe the mechanic that I like the most and that I suck the most at the same time. But I enjoy auction games. I always spend too much. So there is bluffing, there is trying to read the opponent, and yet all the elements of the game come together very well, and the game flows nicely and smoothly. I like this twist that the money goes back to the board or is behind the screens all the time. That's very neat. And the flow of the game, the pace of the game, I'd say the architecture of the game is the word I was looking for. As you can imagine, I imagine that from reading the rule book, is that everybody's going to try to go for free grabs as quick as possible, and then you're going to start fighting where strictly necessary, which is going to happen. But because if you're not playing with 6 players, then some regions are not going to be used, and they're not always the same. You can set it up in different ways. That changes things substantially depending on which regions are in play, because it shows, it determines who is going to be in play. Then also the powers that the players have, they do change gameplay significantly. Changing king, changing kingdom gives you different actions. The Huns, for example, are able to claim things quickly. Other people are better at fortifying and defending or navigating. Different abilities, you will want to use those. And again, depending on which kingdoms are in play and which one you have, it will change your experience quite a bit. I would say for a game that feels so small in terms of like people are going to get in the way of each other pretty soon, there is quite a significant difference in experience from game to game. So I think the replay value is going to be pretty good. But again, you're going to have people trying to grab things and maybe try to keep an eye on, like, am I going to be attacked by the sea? Should I use the sea? From the sea? Should I use the sea? But, and then you're going to get a point where everybody's going to be pretty close to victory. Everybody maybe will just need one, to place down one control token. And that is when the diplomacy then becomes really intense. And you're going to try to scheme against each other. Hey, you really need to attack Dylan. Oh my gosh, look at Zach is so close to winning. While you're hoping that no one notices that you're in the same spot. So you have a simple, clean engine, a Eurogame kind of engine with diplomacy, with war game kind of actions, and with auction. It is a game that within a very simple rule set puts together a lot of different things, and yet it does it very well. It is not a game that I can play solo. That would be the only draw. But from when I have a couple of players who want to play, this could even work as a second game of the night. Usually, I like to have a lighter game, but say with with 3-4 players, that this game is so simple to teach and surprisingly fast to play, and yet still very satisfying. So I only have pretty much good things to say about Barbarian Kingdoms, a game that I enjoyed very much.